They might talk about humor, music, film, books, football and box sets, exercise and maybe even food, trivia and sport, politics and health, sometimes well-being too. On the Life with Brian. On the Life with Brian.
Hello and greetings from myself, Mark Godfrey, and my co-host here on Life with Brian, Matthew Christ. How are you doing, Matthew?
Hello, Mark. Good to see you. Everything okay?
Yeah, as well as can be expected. We're going to take a short break to recharge the batteries before we launch ourselves and our glorious leader, Brian McClare, headlong into 2022. We thought we'd take a look back at 2021 and marvel at how we somehow managed to nail Choccy down to 19 episodes of the podcast. So sit back and enjoy some of our favourite clips featuring the special guests who joined us along the way.
Our very first guest on Life with Brian was one of Choccy's oldest footballing friends, Pat Nevin. In fact, during the chat, we learned that they were so close that they even used to compile mixtapes for each other when on international duty. So how well could Brian remember the tracks that Pat had chosen for him back in the mid-1980s?
I've got a cassette case here of a music mixtape you made and you gave to me. I don't know if you made it for me. I think you did make it for me. I like to think you made it for me because it helps me sleep at night. From 1985, right?
That could be.
I'm going to right. So, what do you mean it could be terrible?
My taste.
And you've handily written some notes to each tune,
Go on.
right? Not each tune, but some of the tunes, right? So, I'll read, which is sort of links into what you just said there. It says, this song was released in this forum after I suggested it should be whilst reviewing record mirror singles.
Guess what that is?
Oh, you get this is the whole point of the quiz. Yeah, there you go. You have to guess. Hey, wow! Exclamation mark in brackets. Adrian also mentioned it in his NME singles review.
That will be Waiting for the Love Bug by the Associates, and that will be the John Peel.
Hey, absolutely spot on. I thought you couldn't remember anything.
Music. Hey, don't ask me about football. Ask me about music. I'm all right.
How can you not remember? That's word for word. That.
I was very proud of that again because there's a great version of the single, and what I didn't mention on that is that Peely and I had chatted about it as well, that it should have been released, so that was nice.
This is a great one considering about what we're talking about, where certain people live. This is track 5. Includes brackets the Randy Scouse Git mix. I kid thee not.
That will be Wah, and that will be Story of the. Oh, it could be Story of Blues or Story of the Reds. It could be Come Back. I'd say Come Back by Wah.
Yes, it's Come Back by the 90.
Good guess.
So, okay, we've had first.
Right,
Hang on, Brian, have you finished or are we still doing this pub quiz?
Just one more. One more, right?
Determined to get
this is just remarkable. No, I'm not. This is like, I'm so impressed by this. All right. This is track 10. It says, it's unashamed self-indulgence on my part.
That's nowhere near enough. Oh, I'll never get that.
That's what it says.
I'll never get that in a million years. And if it's a female singer, I do not want to know.
Right, okay, well, I better not
Good.
mention it.
In joke there from McClare and Nevin. Let's move on quickly.
Right, so come on, haven't we? We've had first.
I know precisely what it is, by the way.
We'll leave it. No, it's not. We'll leave it at that, right?
When Paddy Barclay joined us for episode 2, we were treated to some wonderful stories like how Paddy once mistook Brian for Andy Cole, to a verbal tirade he once received from Sir Alex Ferguson. In fact, we had to run the chat over 2 shows just to get everything in. Here's just a flavour of that epic discussion.
Paddy, you'll know it reminds me of the tale about Arthur Montford. Do you know that one?
Which one?
Well, Arthur Montford is from the one that I know.
With the check jacket.
I've heard is that he's commentating on a game. It could have been a game of, I think it was Russia versus Scotland, because it sounds that kind of game at Hampden Park. And you know that old press box that used to dangle below there.
Yeah.
So he would be in there doing his TV commentary while the dailies and the Sundays would be sitting round about him as well, and he's commentating on the game. And Russia scored a goal, and he's sitting next to Ian Archer. Remember Ian Archer?
I loved Ian Archer.
Yeah, so he's a bit of a lugubrious character, isn't he? A bit laid back and a bit droll, isn't he?
English accent.
And then great, a very dry sense of humour.
Brilliant.
And then Arthur says, Arthur in his very animated way, it's a goal. The Russians have scored. They've scored a goal. It's a fantastic goal for Russia. And he put his hand over the microphone because he couldn't work out which Russian had scored the goal. And his hand over the microphone, and he turned around to Ian Archer, who's lying back next to him watching the game. And he says to Ian, "Did you notice who scored that goal there?" And Ian Archer turned around and said to him, "Fuck Stefano." And it's a great goal for Russia. It's fuck Stefano. 1-0 to Russia. Fuck Stefano scores.
Brian's special guest on episode 5 was Ray Mead, musician and bassist with Ocean Colour Scene and Jerry Cinnamon. Being a Manchester United and Choccy fan since he was a kid, the pair discussed how they first met, as well as how to send books to Iran, being a musician during lockdown, and Fred West's ice cream van of all things. But here's a tale of how they once got Ray's dad drunk on a random day out in Glasgow.
I think we swapped messages on Twitter a couple of days later, and we did have a memorable second date. Indeed, now I'm thinking about it, yeah, it was quite memorable.
Well, you can't not divulge that information now, can you? You both mentioned this.
They said that the next time we'd meet up and would meet up. I think that was the second time when we met in the pub your dad was there, wasn't it?
That's the day I'm thinking of. Yep. And
yeah, the first proper date was Raymond said, "Does he mind if he brought his dad along?"
Was this some kind of chaperone? Was he?
Yeah, chaperone. Yeah, well, it worked out well that way with a chaperone because your dad was involved at Albion Rovers, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was for years and years. He was the chairman
Which
there.
Is the football team in Coatbridge, Matthew, which you'll know nothing about.
Oh, I know everything about Coatbridge. You know that.
You don't know there's a football team there.
Well, I do now.
So it was good actually because it ended up that Raymond was a chaperone because he never actually got the chance to say a single thing. Me and his dad just chatted about football. And every time that there was and I kept kind of looking to give Raymond an opportunity to get in. And just as he was about to get in, it was a bit like the Jason Higgins kind of thing. His dad would swipe him. Right. No, so I'm talking. You get a chance in a minute. And then after 6 pints of Stella later, I think it was time for, it was in the afternoon minutes, so it was 6 pints of Stella later, it was time for your dad to go.
Well, he went home on the bus, and I remember my mum texting me saying, "Where have you been? What's happened here?" Do you know what I mean? He was upside down. It was hilarious, but I think he enjoyed himself.
We welcome Choccy's great friend and former Celtic teammate John Colquhoun on episode 6 to talk tales of the underground, the great VAR robbery, and how the pair first met on a bus to Nottingham. They'll also test their knowledge of each other by revisiting their old Shoot and Match magazine interviews from the 1980s before playing a new game, What's the Story, Player or Tory? This is going to take a little bit of setting up. I had both Choccy and John on another podcast that I do, on which we examine more closely some of the answers behind those old Shoot and Match player profiles that we talked about earlier from the 1980s. Both of you indicated an interest in politics with a lean in toward the left, which elicited an exchange on John's Twitter.
There's no leaning.
Yeah. And there was an exchange on John's Twitter, which was accompanied by a photo of the pair of you outside a Labour club doing a bit of campaigning, I believe, somewhere in Ayrshire back in the 80s. And I'm going to put that photo up on our Twitter account, even if just for the knitwear alone. So here's how you're going to play. I'm going to give you 3 names each, and you have to decide if they are players, current or former, or Tory MPs. current or former. And just to sort of the thread in this is they've all got double-barreled surnames, like I always feel most Tory MPs should have. So, Brian, you won the toss, and you're going to go first this time. So your first person to tell me whether it's a player or Tory is Jeff Wren Adelaide.
Player.
Absolutely. Yeah, he is a player. Good. Was that a guess, or did you know?
I can't reveal any of my sources.
Has Matthew been
I'll
slipping
just
you the
have to have
answers?
got one right. That's it. I'm
Food's on the table.
Right, that'll do me. I can retire now. I can retire from this game. In fact, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea.
Right. Well, Jeff Wren Adelaide, for those that don't know, is a footballer. He plays for Lyon, but he's currently on loan at Nice, and he's a former Arsenal youth player. Right, John, for you to equalise, yours is Jeffrey Clinton Brown.
MP.
Oh,
He's
back of
got
the
a good
net.
player.
No, back of the net, Tory MP, the current MP for the Cotswolds constituency. And whether this is a sign of interbreeding or nepotism or what, but he's related to 7 former Tory MPs.
Amazing, huh? Amazing.
Yeah, it's not what you know, but who you know. I think that's proven, isn't it?
You know, have they all got double barrel names?
Well, I assume most of them are called Clinton Brown, I would imagine. Right, Brian, you're next up to go back in the lead, and yours is Aretas Akers Douglas.
MP.
Ooh, you spawny git. It is that, isn't it? Tory MP from the 1880s to the 1910s. I thought you might get this. The 1880s to the 1910s. Now, I thought you would have thought this one was a player because it's quite a sort of a more modern sounding name, that. But supposedly...
He remembers it, that's why.
The one we just did, his Tory credentials are pretty solid. The second half of his surname was taken, apparently, as a request in a late relative's will.
Ah, right. Okay.
Right, John, yours is Jake Forster Caskey.
Player.
He is a player. Maybe that was a bit easy. He's currently
That was
at
a bit easy.
Charlton. Yeah, he's currently at Charlton Athletic. And do you know how his surname comes about?
Did his dad play with Tottenham?
Indeed, yeah. His dad is Darren Caskey.
Is Nicky Forster involved in there somewhere?
Absolutely, yeah. His dad's Darren Caskey and his stepdad is Nicky Forster. And both of them played for Reading. So I don't know if they played for Reading at the time he was born or what, but...
I'm glad someone's actually playing this game properly rather than just guessing. You know, it's nice.
It was. But to be fair, Brian did that with that last MP as well. He just didn't want to appear too clever.
True.
Well, I mean, one of my specialist subjects, you know, Tory MPs from 1880 to 1910.
Okay. Well, there you go. We'll see you on Celebrity Mastermind in the future, trying to pull a few more out your arse from nowhere then.
Mine's will be the Adventures of Falcon Leghorn, because that's how far Mastermind has fallen now.
It is actually, isn't it? And I get loads of questions right now. They must have fallen badly there. In fact, I'm starting to get questions at University Challenge as well. It's just
right, Brian. To get a clean sweep, yours is this is your final one. It's Ian Liddell Granger.
MP.
Again, is that one you knew or just a stab in the dark?
No, I didn't. Listen, he'll be on his 4th gang of Strongbow. He doesn't know anything.
He is indeed a Tory MP, born in Edinburgh, but he's the MP for Bridgewater and West Somerset. And apparently he's a great-great-great-grandson of Queen Victoria. All right, John, to... at least share the spoils and not to let Choccy get away with just, plucking these out of thin air. Your last one is Ian Thomas Moore.
I'm going on the fact that I don't want to just go your alternate ones that use are 3 and 3. So I'm going to stick with that and go as a player because it sounds a proper joined up working class name. So I'm going for player.
Well done. It is. That's it. You're right. It's 3-3, and we're not going to go with a tiebreaker. But you're right. But he didn't start out as Ian Thomas Moore. He's a former Tranmere striker, and he's the son of former Tranmere player and manager Ronnie Moore. And he took the Thomas part of his name whilst he was still playing. But after he got married to his long-term partner, and the reason being, so him and his missus and the kids all had the same double-barrel surname. So there we go.
It would be more impressive if Dudley Moore was his dad rather than Ronnie Moore, to be honest.
Although I've seen Tranmere, and to be fair, Dudley Moore could have got a game for them.
Journalist Andy Mitten joined Brian to mark the 30th anniversary of United's momentous European Cup Winners' Cup victory over Barcelona in 1991, showing their on-field and off-field memories of the road to Rotterdam and that momentous match against the Catalan giants. Not to mention a strange request by one of Andy's school teachers.
I was given £15 by a teacher at school and asked to buy a pornographic video for that teacher. I mean, you look at it now.
What?
Yeah, I mean, you look now and you think it's so out of order.
So you were 17.
No wonder you got promoted to head boy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no wonder. Maybe that was the reason I didn't get the teacher's vote, because he was telling people, but maybe he thought, I am the man who will be identified to buy him a video. And you know what? I bought it.
Did you ever consider that it might have been a test?
I think I just genuinely took it at face value. And he didn't even give me like £1 for buying it for him. And I didn't even watch it. We didn't even have a video.
So was this in the back of your head that this might have been potential disappointment for people when you spoke to your mum and when she told you that she was so proud of you to be head boy, and you said that not only that you managed to get over and get back to England and had met many wonderful people along the way, but you were bringing a present back for one of your teachers.
My mother's an Old Trafford girl, and she's definitely not wet behind the ears, but I definitely would not have told my mother that I'd bought a pornographic video for a teacher. I just knew what I was like then, and I wouldn't have told her.
Life with Brian.
When Viv Anderson joined us for episode 8, he and Choccy discussed working with Fergie and Brian Clough, as well as the first time they set eyes on Ryan Giggs, and they discussed getting into a dust-up with Norman Whiteside. But here they are, reminiscing about, of all things, the suits they wore on the day they both signed for Manchester United.
Who was the first one to put pen to paper, though? Surely that's.
I think it was Viv.
I wouldn't have a clue, honestly. Wouldn't have a clue.
One of the things about that day that we got on really well from the very beginning, for some reason, despite the fact that of Viv's dislike of the Scots, and that we had both had the same suit on. Do you remember?
No.
Yeah,
listen,
we both.
I
right, you can remember last week.
I don't remember what happened yesterday. 20 years ago.
Well, I remember it. We both had the same suit from Slater's.
I remember going to Slater's. Yes, it's all coming back to me now, Brian. Well done.
We both had exactly the same suit, only in slightly different sizes.
Yours was an extra large and mine was a very small one.
Is this in that famous promo shot of you and Fergie and Viv?
And every picture you see, it's in black and white.
Yeah, I thought that. We were trying to find a picture of it. And it looks like it's from the 60s.
I know, yeah. Thank you. George Best and Bobby Charlton was next door.
When Manchester music legend and massive Manchester United fan Manny joined us back in May, topics up for discussion included what he would do if Manchester City won the Champions League, an unfortunate incident with the main road carpet, and Noel Gallagher's 3 left feet. While Choccy revealed how it was he that suggested replacing Tina Turner's Simply the Best with This Is the One as United's walk-on music.
Because I was thinking, your music, Manny, with the Roses are sort of synonymous with United fans in that sort of early 90s, late 80s, early 90s era. I mean, that must have been a bit of a kick for you, to be such a big red, and your music's almost like a soundtrack to a lot of United fans' lives, isn't it?
Do you know the good thing of it is
every time the team comes out, they come out to This Is The One, which is, and I always think in my mind, well, there's another 37.5p going into Squire Brown's pockets, man. But it's nice there. It's a nice thing, a nice tie-in, you know, for a absolutely manic United fan to have that. And also then to hear them singing I Want to Be Edward on the terraces at Celtic as well is another very proud moment.
The United one's down to me, so that 37.5 pence that both of them got, they owe me down to that, because we used to come out to Tina Turner, didn't they?
Yes, simply the best.
I hate that song. Just can't, you know. So they were looking to change it, and the Fergie wanted something like a song by Matt Monro or one of the other crooners, and you can't be coming out to, you know, something like that from Frank Sinatra or Matt Monro. But he was really serious. He wasn't taking the piss. He was serious, and I think I just said to listen, this is a perfect song for us to come out to. This is a one, and that's been the same for all that period of time. So that's probably my the best thing that I've ever achieved in my career. So once again, Fergie listens to McClare, right? Wouldn't be the.
He didn't listen to me. I just told him. I just said that I just said, you know, the manager said it was all right, assuming that by the time that he found out that where it come from, it would all be set, you know. So by the time he'd found out it was already being played a few times, and it clearly had gone down well with the supporters and the players were inspired by it. So I think it made the right choice.
Legendary commentator Clive Tilsley dropped by to talk about his new book, Not For Me, Clive, on episode 10, as well as commentating in empty stadiums during lockdown, the perils of social media, when it's appropriate to use the F word on television, and maintaining good relations with Sir Alex Ferguson.
I had a really good professional relationship with Sir Alex. I say had. I've only been to him once in recent times, and he was great. We picked up pretty much where we left off, which is, you know, part of the measure of the man. I was fortunate when I took over as the senior commentator that my predecessor, the late great Brian Moore, also had a very good relationship, trusting relationship with him. And in a way, I don't know if Brian spoke on my behalf, but I think I inherited that to a degree. But perhaps more importantly, I worked with Jason at Granada, one of his sons. And Jason was actually, for a while, the voice in my ear, the director of the pictures of the match, the most important person at an outside broadcast. So after one of those games, I was invited back to. He's lived in that house for years and years and years. And
he moved after you were there.
Yeah, I stayed overnight. I won't say where it is, but I did stay overnight. And he came in rather gruffly. And I think he was off to watch the highlights, and we thought probably best to go watch them with him, just in case I'd said something or Jason had done something. But the book is framed around chapter headings, which are famous people, one of whom is Fergie. But that chapter, as with the other chapters, is not specifically about him. It's not just a compendium of Fergie tales. It's that chapter really is about power, about somebody in a position of power trying to maintain and sustain that power in order for him or her to do the job to the best of in their way. And I think the model of that you lived through is very unusual in 21st century football. It's very rare, certainly for the team manager, to have that kind of power inside in the football club. But it was key to the way that Sir Alex managed you, and indeed managed me as an outsider who came occasionally into his life, because I knew that if I broke the unwritten law, whatever it was, that I'd be banned. I'd be banned from Old Trafford. I wouldn't be able to work on Manchester United games. He had the power to do that. I mean, he kicked the BBC out over. Well, we can all barely remember what it was about. It lasted about 8-9 years, didn't he? Wouldn't do an interview with the BBC against all the the agreements that they'd made, all the contracts that they had with the Premier League and therefore Manchester United. But he had the power to do that, and you had to respect that if you wanted to work in his realm.
Well, that's because it transgressed one of those things that you mentioned there, that they criticised a member of his family.
Absolutely.
It was unfair and unjust. And when he makes up his mind about a certain thing, then he sticks to it.
Yeah, I've got a list in the book, and we all know who they were. You know that. I mean, from Mrs. B. I mean, he quite liked David. You know, I mean, I was there as indeed you were when really. I mean, great's an overused word in football, but Steve Bruce and Mark Hughes had great careers at Manchester United. They were ended. Lee Sharp's was pretty much ended in a way. Yap Stams was ended, and he even admitted 7 or 8 years later he got that one wrong. But you know, when one of my very best friends in the world, who none of the viewers would know, who had an extraordinarily close relationship, and they didn't even fall out, but something happened, you know, around Rock of Gibraltar, whereby he was given an ultimatum, basically choose, you know, do you want to stay with me or do you want to be with them? And yeah, that comes from the power that he managed to generate, and indeed not just generate, but he took responsibility for, and the club and everybody around him was successful as a result of the power that he had. So that power genuinely was authenticated, and so why would anybody challenge it at any stage?
Comedian Justin Morehouse joined us in June to chat about his love of comedy and Manchester United, karaoke, as well as his successful appearance on Celebrity Mastermind. But here he is discussing how the cast of Looking for Eric were kept in the dark about a certain Frenchman's cameo appearance in the 2009 film.
Yeah, obviously the pair of you have had supporting roles to Eric at one time or another. Justin, what was it like working with him on the film Looking for Eric?
You know what? It was kind of so. I never think of myself as an actor. I've always been really lucky at getting things on, a little bits of it. I'm not trained or anything. I don't pretend to be a great actor, but sort of Ken Loach is in town, and the sort of audition process was you have to go and meet him at Friends Meeting House, you know, the Quakers place behind the library on Mount Street, and you go in and just chatted, and he went, "Oh, so what have you been up to? What do you do? Where did you grow up? What jobs have you done?" And you tell him all that, and he goes, "Right, thanks, see you again." And you go out and you tell your agent, "You go, I don't think it went very well. I didn't have to read anything." But he just gets to know people and gets to know them, and then you do 2 or 3 different sort of chats like that, and then you meet some different people. And a lot of people he works with actually are from Glasgow. Like a lot of the production team and the crew, they're all sort of like a band that have been together. And then so I get the part, and then one day he rings me up and he says, "Can I let you into a secret?" And I said, "Yeah, I thought he was going to tell us he was like a Tory or something like that." You know, it's like, this is just a character that I do. Lord Loach of Nuneaton. And he says, "Oh, we've got Eric Cantona in the film." And I was like, "Fucking hell, this is great." And he says, "But no one's going to know. Literally, no one's going to know, including the lead actor, until he appears on screen." So that's how it happens. So if you've seen the film, Steve Everts, who plays Little Eric, turns around and goes, "Well, what the fuck hell are you doing here?" And that was his reaction, because he thought he heard this sort of like these French voices, but we had like a Belgian crew, and you know, Belgium, it's just the French Wales, isn't it? And he just thought it was them.
We welcomed chief football writer at the Times, Henry Winter, onto episode 12, and he spoke about Fergie's eloquent ferocity, youth development, distractions for young footballers, as well as an enduring love for Scotland. But here he is telling us about the mutual respect that still exists between Sir Alex Ferguson and Kenny Dalglish all these years on.
And I remember being fortunate to write a couple of books with Sir Kenny Dalglish, and the first one, this just after he won the title at Blackburn. And the publisher said to me, he said, "Well, we need a big name to do the forward." And Kenny said, Alec, he was called Sir Alex Ferguson, Alec, said, "Well, he'll do it." And I said, "Well, how's it? There's a chapter on your two, you know, your feud between each other." He said, "No, Alex is good as gold, he'll do it." So I rang up, he was at the Cliff at the time, and I rang up and his secretary said, "He'll ring you, he'll agree to do it, he'll write the forward, you've got 3 questions, and he'll call you early tomorrow morning." 7 o'clock, phone went, and it's Sir Alex. And he said, 3 questions. I got training. I think it's probably about 3 hours until the players come in for training. But anyway, 3 questions. He said, and I said, right, what's Kenny Dalglish like as a player? And you know what he's like. We've talked about his eloquence. He spoke so beautifully about how Kenny played the ball. And it was lovely, but it was about a sort of 50-second answer, 200 words, beautiful. I was going, this is going so well. I said, right, what's your next question? I said, what's Kenny Dalglish like as a manager? And he said, well, listen, he's won the title at 2 clubs. You've got to respect that. I always found it a duel and a battle playing against his team, tactically, physically. And again, another 200 words, 50 seconds. I thought, this is just going so well. And then he said, right, what's your last question? I've got training. And I said, well, you know, Kenny, what's he like as a person? And he said, he flipped a question back on me. He said, well, you spent time with him doing this book. What do you think? And I said, well, he's got a close unit of his family and of Hanson and 1 or 2 other people. But Mr. Ferguson, he doesn't have that huge, what I perceive, that huge collection of sort of friends and associates that you do. And Ferguson went, you only need 4 people to carry your coffin. Put the phone down. And I mean, it was 7:05 in the morning. And I was thinking, I will never have a more productive 5 minutes.
It was a Dad and Lad special on episode 13, as Liam McClare joined us to chat about growing up with a famous father, playing in the Manchester United Academy, his songwriting process, and breaking Choccy's prize ornate chess set. He also played 3 live tracks for us. But here he is recalling the day his overhead kick ended in tears.
The lounge in our house when we were growing up was like this sort of do not go.
Because everybody had a lounge, didn't they? You know,
child-free zone in the heart. And I think it was decorated purposefully to be childproof because everything was white and glass and ornate, and just like if you even went in there, it would be obvious because either something would be broken or there'd be like fingerprints. So I had a little football that I used to kick around, and then sometimes I'd like pretend I was like doing like a bicycle kick and land on the sofa, it's like doing my technique, and then one of them just like hit into this. I think Dad had one. It's like a Sherlock Holmes ornate chess set. And I basically got a strike through them all, and a few of the pawns lost their heads. I think a few of the bishops maybe. It was pretty bad.
And I'm sure you were very understanding about that, Brian. Whether you wouldn't have chastised Liam too much.
No, I was raging.
Did he get a hairdryer?
He got a hairdryer. I might have been held back to say that there might have been a little bit of protection from his mother, you know. So it was, but no, it was just. But I've got a lovely little note of a little handwritten note still from apologising to saying sorry that he'd broken the chess pieces, you know. So
yeah,
but the looking out of that thing about where I wasn't pleased about it, because you know. You always said like anything, you know, you tell children not to do things, they'll like to go, well, why can I not do that, you know? It wasn't as if the door was padlocked or anything like that, you know, but it was. And maybe it was a thing that you shouldn't have really put your chess set on the middle of the table. That's always going to be a potential problem for any of the kids, you know, to be. Not that the girls were practicing their bicycle kicks. I don't remember them doing that, but. Right. I've never got around to replacing it right enough. That's something I've got the board. I've got 2 pieces that survived, you know. So we glued them back together. I mean, they did. But there's every now and again then you would get annoyed with your children and the things that they did. But overall, no.
I say you never venture back into that.
No, of course he would be back in it. No danger, he'd be back. Probably doing it again the next day.
Yeah.
After a brief pre-season break, we were joined by Spanish football expert Graham Hunter live from his tiny bathroom for a packed show as we discussed Lionel Messi's departure from Barcelona, being held at gunpoint whilst following Celtic, bullying advice from Alex Ferguson's wife, Dean Martin, and more Tommy Burns tales like this one.
He was a wonderful person. I mean, just some of the things he used to come out with, sense of humour is like the 2 of the funniest, if not the 2 funniest people I've ever met in football are both gingers. That's Tommy Burns and Strack. You know,
They sort of, both of them are just been so quick-witted, and then they were a partnership, or sort of saying kind of partnership again at Celtic, where when Gordon was the manager and Tommy was helping him out, you know. So some of the things that it's just wonderful.
I've got nothing on Tommy memories compared to you, but for anybody who's listening to your podcast who doesn't know Tommy, you can look at the football videos, but there's one that I've seen. You can go on YouTube and see Tommy at a dinner where he sings a cappella "Mac the Knife." I'm actually getting a bit emotional, and he just stands up at a dinner and sings "Mac the Knife." I think for to raise money for charity. And also when I was maybe 10 years in Barcelona, when Tommy died, I was sitting in my flat alone, tearful, I have to say. And for those who, I'm not Glaswegian, but I lived in Glasgow for a long time. For those who don't know the Glaswegian divide or politics or attitudes, to see who carried the coffin, and to see Starkey speaking at the cathedral, and it just Billy Shutt couldn't fucking get a sentence out without weeping. But Walter there, and Walter speaking, Walter Smith, the Rangers manager, because Tommy unified people, unified clubs, beliefs. He cut across everything, and I just wish I'd known him better. One of the things about moving away to London was that I wasn't around quite so much in his Kilmarnock days and whatever, but just an unbelievable man, unbelievable.
Life with Brian, life with Brian, life with Brian.
For episode 15, we welcomed four-time snooker world champion John Higgins to delve a little deeper into the mixed results of John's TV quiz show history. A penchant for Chinese waistcoat, his dad's nickname for a Celtic great, disconcerting introduction to Alex Higgins, not to mention a love of US soap Dallas.
Yes. Now, we've ribbed Choccy about his brief and unhelpful appearance on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire as Sir Alex Ferguson's phone a friend. But, John, you've actually appeared on Celebrity Mastermind back in 2010, and Brian's already referred to it, but your chosen specialist subject was?
Dallas.
Now,
you find out some stuff, don't you?
That begs the question, why? Are you a super fan?
I was a massive fan back in the day. Aye, massive fan. I think it was just on like every Wednesday night or something back in the day, and you were
Saturday.
Was it Saturday? Was that season's
You
one
should
and
have
two?
been. You should have been down you should have been down the park underneath the chute drinking, not watching Dallas. Or were you home in time after doing that to go to watch Dallas?
I was told to get in at 9 o'clock, so just as I was coming in, before I went in for how Dallas was on, so I just became just fan. Aye, so massive fan.
Yeah. Well, you did brilliantly in that round, scoring 13 points. And then came the general knowledge round. And this has to be one of my favourite all-time mastermind moments. You probably know what question I'm referring to here. I'll be John Humphreys, okay? What popular pizza that shares its name with a famous work by Vivaldi is normally divided into 4 sections, each containing different toppings? The answer is the 4 Seasons. You said...
4 cheeses. It was 4. Scrambled. Really was. At that point, it was scrambled. I think I just took in my whole surroundings, thinking I'm actually here on bloody Mastermind, and things weren't going so well, and yeah, my mind just went blank. So
in fairness, there is a 4 cheese pizza is quite common. I mean, it's obviously just not that one, but I mean, I'm partial to a quattro formaggi.
Manchester United fan and star of stage and screen Lee Boardman emerged from his sickbed on episode 15 to talk about his time on Coronation Street in Rome, including the indignity of doing nude scenes, puking on his first visit to Old Trafford, pubs in Reddish, dealing with fame, and being shouted at by Paulins, his wife. Here he is telling that particular tale.
So I used to work in a jeweller's in, this is like 30 odd years ago now, in Manchester in the Arndale Centre called Zales. And Paul Ince and his had a Gucci watch, and it was one of them Gucci watches. He had like it has the Italian flag on it. The colours of like the green and the red and he had this watch, and he came in and I think he was getting it refurbed or something, or serviced or whatever, and it hadn't come back in time, and it used to send him away for like 8 weeks at a time. They'd send him back to Switzerland, and his wife came in with him, and he came in shop, and we were all like, "That's Paul Ince, fucking hell, I can't believe it." And we were all like jockeying to serve, and she absolutely roasted the old place. She was absolutely furious, and he just kind of he stood there like, with his sort of, just literally like, she looked like she ruled. Do you know what I mean? She absolutely ruled their house, and he just stood there quiet as a mouse, and she absolutely gave it to everybody else. She was terrible that day. I'm sure she's a very nice lady, but that was my only experience of her. So from that moment, you know, I was always really careful when I had some modicum of like being recognised, that I had to just watch my P's and Q's just in case, because I didn't want anybody to have a story like that about me.
Which is so you learned something brilliant there, and it's something that you just telling that story used to always disappoint me about my teammates and sometimes our partners, about how they behaved, you know, because we all come from the same background, you know. You're from Reddish, Paul's from a shithole part of London, and so is she, you know, and that if their parents, where you usually get your morality and your manners from, found out you're behaving in such a manner, you would get your ass kicked, you know.
Absolutely.
And it'd be like it, because it's always a reflection on them, like how you're behaving, you know, like
totally.
You know, but just relating to Paul and his missus, we were playing a game, a pre-season game at Ibrox in Glasgow, and me being very popular in that part of town, I didn't want to be out warming up. Not that I warmed up very much, but occasionally I would go out. I didn't really want to be out there too long before the game started. I don't mind during the game, right? Because you're all part of playing in the game, and you get caught up in the performance, as you may well do when you're doing your stuff and all that kind of. Particularly when you're on stage and you're in the moment and you don't know there's an audience there. So all the booing and whistling and all that's not real relevance, you know. So I went back into the dressing room, right? And in the dressing room, much to my surprise and delight, is Sean Connery.
That's brilliant.
And I go in and I'm like, I can't believe that I'm basically talking to. So one of the first things, my time of falling in love with film, was James Bond and Sean Connery playing James Bond. So I'm like, this is what a thing to happen, you know. So I have a little chat about what I've just. You know, for me, you're barely a god, you know. And the next person to come into the dressing room was Paul Ince. Now, Paul this is one of the things, you know, I think Paul gave himself the nickname the Governor. You know, usually, and I didn't give myself Choccy, that came from whatever, right? He gave himself the nickname the Governor, right? And got annoyed when people wouldn't call him that. And I never called him that. So he comes in to the dressing room, and I don't think he's that sure about who this elderly gentleman is, right? So the manager introduces him. He goes, Sean, this is Paul Ince, you know, and he turns around, straight round to Sean Connery and goes, fucking Governor, right?
Oh, my goodness, man.
I'm the only other person in the dressing room with you, right? You're sitting going, what the fuck are you doing, you know? And then, but the best part is Sean Connery just looks on and goes, I think, young man, you'll find that that's your wife. At which point he just kind of looked and just walked past and sat down, you know, and I'm howling, laughing, thinking, I know exactly the same things, but you know that incident you have, that wasn't the only incident in their relationship. She definitely
brilliant.
So, did you ever put him right? Did you ever tell him, you know, who that was? Or
no,
did you ever twig?
Why spoil it? He's got no idea. He's not got a clue who he is. You know, he's just been put. He's put him in a box and he's shut the lid on him. You know,
We brought Choccy back together with his old Arsenal adversary Nigel Winterburn for episode 17, but thankfully there were no fisticuffs. Just a good chat and a few laughs about their famous on-field clashes. As well as that penalty miss in 1988, the famous 20-man Old Trafford brawl in 1990, the lads also talk about meeting Nelson Mandela, the Manchester United-Arsenal rivalry, working with Ferguson, Graham and Wenger, Anfield in 89, and their astrological bonds to one another. Let's treat this as your disciplinary hearing, maybe, and let's have both sides of the story.
I don't know whether we were in the middle of it, because my recollection was I think I made the a tackle on Dennis, and then so from what I can remember is actually as I made the tackle, and then obviously you could come in with your studs raised, and my foot went straight across the top of the ball, and I think hit him in the shin. So I was on the floor, and then I remember getting a good little couple of kicks in the back from somebody, and I was lying down, and then everybody else was sort of piling in. I always call it handbags, a bit of pushing, a bit of shoving, and then the FA become involved. But George Graham always used to say to us, don't leave anybody on their own. Make it difficult for the referee to make a decision. So he said, if one player's in trouble, everybody gather round. And so it's like everybody. And I suppose with the the little bit of a history as well before that with United and Arsenal, just that one thing, it only needed something very, very small to spark it off again. But I don't really know what happened after that, and I haven't watched it again. But my recollection was of the tackle, and then two. I think it was certainly it could have been one player, could have been two, but I definitely got two kicks in the back.
Well, they were definitely from Brian. If you look at the video, it was definitely.
Well, there you go. He got his own back. So
the thing is, you get sometimes then that one in particular, and it didn't have to be very often because I'm pretty mild mannered and offensive, both on and off the pitch. But I just got into the red zone, and you'd made the tackle that I thought was unfair, and you were just lying there, and I just completely lost it. And I kicked you not once but twice, probably the fastest that I've ever kicked anybody. Fastest I've ever moved my feet, right? Ever moved my feet. And the thing that you said about what I credit both sides was that Fergie used to say he should be happy he's playing today, and I'm happy he's playing today, because if anything happens, they'll be at your shoulder. And quite quickly, straight after that, everybody piled in. Now, Michael Thomas had me by the throat. He's got his hand strangling me, and Tony Adams is over his shoulder trying to grab me, and other people are piling in. And then I don't know Anders Limper, I don't know anything about him, but what he did was he came round behind me and punched me in the side of the head.
See, I did.
Punched me in the side of the head.
All this while Nigel's lying on the floor still.
He's lying down there somewhere.
I think I found it.
The safest place to be is to stay lying on the pitch.
It's the safest place to be at that time. What I'd done is I didn't want to get in any more trouble or be blamed for anything else. And then I thought the best place to do was lie there.
There were plenty of laughs when actor, writer and comedian Sanjeev Kohli joined us for episode 18 to talk about the success of Still Game and his character Naveed's two-footed tackle. Also brought to the table was selling yeast on the dark web, working in the family shop, winning Richard Osman's House of Games, and getting a rollicking from Floella Benjamin of all people. Let's let Sanjeev explain more.
I'm older than you, so when I came home from school, I used to watch everything that came on, right? From Play School, Jack and Ori, all the way through things. And you, according to what my information is, got berated by a heroine of mine.
Yes.
Floella
Benjamin. True story.
Have you been berated by any other?
No. I mean, I've often, because of what happened with Floella, I often imagine if I ever drew cock and balls on a beer mat, that Tony Hart would climb out of the telly and give me a telling off. But no, that was funny. That was I was at the Writers Guild Award. So I write Fags, Mags and Bags with Donny McCleary, who's the funniest man that I know. So we write the show together. And the first series got nominated for all kinds of awards, and it got nominated for the Writers Guild Awards. But the thing is, we got nominated, but we never win. We're always the bridesmaid. And this has been a recurring theme for me. If I ever get nominated for anything, I never win. So we went down for these awards, and I'm thinking, let's just enjoy it because I'm not going to win. But it's just great to be nominated, you know. It's good company to be in, you know. And then we went down for it, and we were up against two really good shows. And they said, and the winner is Fags, Mags and Bags. And I went, fuck me. And then I went up to the podium, and I thought this would be funny. I said, I just said fuck me to my writing partner there, but I won't say it up here because that would be construed as lazy writing because it was a writer's award. And they got a laugh. And then afterwards, so Floella Benjamin had been there. Floella Benjamin, who basically was everyone's surrogate mum in the 70s. She was like the queen of children's television. She presented Play School and other stuff. And she was basically everyone's kind of almost childminder in the 70s. So she's everyone like the universal mother figure. So she'd been there to present a kids award. So she comes stomping over to me. She doesn't know who I am. She came stomping over to me and says, congratulations, but did you have to swear? And honestly, I just turned it. I turned it 6-year-old. I think I might have wet myself. I was like, well, it wasn't a funny joke. And then she walked away. Totally had a new one torn off me by Floella Benjamin. It wasn't a nice experience.
As well as telling us about the band's upcoming tour, the Wedding Presents David Gedge joined us on episode 19 to chat new music, his vinyl memories, the time he paid George Best 500 quid, and how he, like Brian, also received postcards from Morrissey.
We can't have you on, David, without asking a question. I don't know whether you wanted to ask this one, Brian, but I'll ask it. It appears there's two people around this table, and it's not me and it's not Mark, that once received postcards from Morrissey. True or false?
Well, yeah, I did receive a couple of postcards from Morrissey.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I would like to still have them, but they went missing during a flitting.
What did he say
at some point? You know.
What did he say on yours? Then?
Oh, mine's was, but as far as I remember, complimentary about something to do with football, but in the typical kind of Morrissey off the ball kind of way, you know, more poetic rather than little scribbles and dots. I would really like to have. I'd like to have those little scribbles and things like that on it as well, you know. So
did he send these to you, care of Manchester United? Or
yeah,
did he know where you lived? Or?
No, I didn't. No,
wasn't skulking around.
It wasn't like the internet where you could find out where people live. No, I just sent them and I replied back to it because you're skeptical, aren't you? I mean, it's like that thing about when you're asking about, or the company are asking for evidence that John Peel did exactly say this. You're like, this could be some kind of just crank that's writing to you, you know. And then I wrote back, but the address was in Bowden, which I know he did have an address in Bowden and Altrincham, you know. So I wrote, and he wrote back, and then the romance just fizzled out.
I mean, the reason I asked David is because I saw a story in the press a few months back about how there was talk of you receiving postcards from Morrissey or some kind of interaction between the two of you, and it was debatable, to say the least.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, it's funny that Brian said that because, you know, I did question the authenticity of my postcard because basically the story is, what was it now?
Was it something to do with you being in the American embassy or something? And that
was a different time. That was a different time. Yeah, this was earlier. I think he did say something in the NME or something, which was a criticism of me or the band or something. And I can't remember if I reacted to that. And then, but then I got this postcard, perfectly, from Morrissey saying, sorry for slagging you off in the newspapers. That's what we do as pop stars, kind of thing. Again, written in a kind of flamboyant. And he has very distinctive handwriting, doesn't he?
Yeah.
That kind of weird spiderly scroll. Yeah. And I had a friend who was a big Smiths fan, and she said, "Yeah, it's definitely Morrissey's handwriting." So then I was, oh well, that's quite cool. I've got a postcard from Morrissey. And I was telling people, and then a few weeks later, Morrissey was in the press saying, "Oh, and now David Gedge is saying he's got a postcard from me," which he has. I never sent him a postcard, so I was like, "Okay, well, so now I don't know whether it was him or whether it wasn't him or not really." But
Have you not got the postcard either?
I've got mine now.
I'm wondering whether these postcards were like Mission Impossible and they self-destructed after the kind of time.
I've no idea what happened to mine.
Oh, it was Invisible Ink or something like that. It just I've got a blank postcard that might have been from.
So was yours a Morrissey picture on the front as well?
There were
picture.
No, there were. I think there was a couple of different ones. I don't think he sent me any pictures of himself.
If you ever want us to send him one back, Brian, we do have our own Life with Brian postcards, which I'm holding up now for everyone to see. So if you've still got that address in Altrincham, and if he's happy to still live there.
I don't know where it is now. No, I'm sure it'll be on the internet somewhere though.
Okay, Matthew, that's time for us to put our feet up for the moment. I'm sure you'll join me and, of course, Brian in thanking the listeners for joining us throughout what's been another difficult year. It's certainly been a laugh and a distraction, that's for sure. And I know that that's what Brian had hoped for the podcast when we started all those months ago.
Absolutely, it's been great fun. You think we started this back in February and Pat joined us in March, and back in those days we were all in lockdown. We were sitting here, the streets were deserted outside, and obviously as the year's gone on, that's all changed for the better. But I think the podcast has kept everyone entertained, whatever they've been up to, and I'm really looking forward to what next year's going to bring.
Just a final reminder to you to subscribe to Life with Brian, the Brian McClare podcast, across all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Acast, Google, and YouTube. And you can follow us for updates and general chit-chat on Twitter at Brian McClare Pod. We'd love to see you there too, and we'll share all details about future special guests and new episodes, etc. So watch what you're doing, and we'll see you again very soon. From Brian, Matthew, and myself, thanks so much for your support. Cheerio.
Life with Brian, talking films or music. Life with Brian, talking TV.